Good morning, students. Today we shall discuss a new topic, that is SEC1 Skill Enhancement course. This is a special course in this CBCS scheme. In this SEC1, there are three skill enhancement courses. One is basic analytical chemistry. Second one is industrial concerned analysis. So we shall discuss in detail this SEC1. Basic analytical chemistry. Basic analytical chemistry is very important in all branches, which is applicable to all branches of chemistry. It is interrelated to all the science subjects. In basic analytical chemistry means it is the analysis of the substance to our requirement. Analysis of the substance has got three steps, that is separation of the substance, identification and quantification. So analytical chemistry is defined as a branch of chemistry which deals with the separation, identification and quantification of the substance. So these three steps are important in analytical chemistry. Now let us discuss these steps one by one. First is separation. Separation or isolation of the required substance. In the raw material, in the source, so various substances are there. We require one of the components from the source. So that sample, that required substance is isolated from the bulk. To isolate this substance from the bulk, there are several steps. One is precipitation, second one is extraction, next one is distillation, and fourth one is chromatographic separation. Now let us discuss this one by one. Some substances can be separated by precipitation. That substance, a suitable precipitant is identified. That suitable precipitant is added to the substance. When that precipitant is added to the substance, this precipitant precipitates the required substance from the source. This precipitant is added slowly with stirring, and a little excess of the precipitant is added. A little excess of the precipitant is added. Too much of this precipitant brings about errors in the substance. Therefore, slowly this precipitant is added, a small excess is added, and that precipitate is separated. So for example, in the precipitation of barium is precipitated as barium sulfate by adding sulfuric acid as the precipitant. Sulfuric acid is added to the barium ion solution. This is a substance to be separated. So when sulfuric acid is added to barium ion, barium sulfate gets precipitated. So this sulfuric acid is added slowly. Too much of sulfuric acid is not correct. Slowly sulfuric acid is added. A small excess of sulfuric acid is added to precipitate out barium sulfate. So this barium sulfate is then filtered to get barium sulfate precipitate. This filtration depends on the nature of the precipitate. In some cases, filter papers are used. In some cases, sintered glass is made use of. So depending upon the nature of the precipitate, we filter this precipitate. For example, in case of precipitation of nickel as nickel dimethyl glyoxime, we use sintered glass crucible. So depending upon the quality of the precipitate, nature of the precipitate, this precipitate is separated by using filter papers, sintered glass crucible, like that. So that is the first method of separation of the substance. But all substances cannot be separated by precipitation. So some substances can be separated by precipitation. Now, which is the next method? Next method is extraction, where this precipitation is not applicable. In such a case, we use extraction. Extraction using a suitable solvent. So that that substance is dissolved in a suitable solvent, and that solvent is separated from the source. Now, source is mixed with a solvent, suitable solvent, in which the substance, the required substance is soluble in the solvent. So that solvent is added to the source, that substance is soluble. There you will get a solution. From the solution we recover the substance. From the solution we recover the substance which we require. So extraction method. So some substances are extracted using a suitable solvent from the source. Similarly, we have another method, that is distillation method. So this distillation method is suitable for the substances which are organic in nature. So this distillation is of several types. We have simple distillation, fractional distillation, and steam distillation. In this simple distillation, we use a distillation flask, a condenser, and a receiver. The substance which is to be separated is dissolved in the solvent. This is the solution. So this solution is heated. That solvent distills over, leaving behind the substance. So by simple distillation, we can recover this substance. For example, salt solution. When salt solution is distilled, that solution leaves behind the salt, and the solvent distills over, and thus salt is obtained. So by simple distillation, salt can be separated by simple distillation. So this is the apparatus used for simple distillation. There is another type of distillation, that is fractional distillation, very important, industrially very important. This is fractional distillation. When the substance contains a number of components there having different boiling points, so to separate those components in the mixture, fractional distillation is the suitable method. For example, in the distillation, in the separation of different components in the petroleum, crude oil contains a number of components like naphtha, kerosene, diesel, lubricant, bitumen, etc. So many components are there in the natural oil, petroleum oil. We call it as crude oil. This will be separated. The components of the crude oil will be separated. This is called fractionation. Petroleum fractionation. Petroleum product is fractionated using this fractionating column. Crude oil is heated. And it is passed into the column. In this column, the components present, they have different boiling points. Those components which have low boiling point, it will be distilled first in the first column. In the first exit, it will come out. For example, naphtha has got very low boiling point, it will come out. Similarly, kerosene has got little higher boiling point, therefore its distillation will be little bit late, and after naphtha, kerosene will be separated. So different fractions are separated. So industrially very important, that is fractional distillation. A number of components, for example, if you take a number of organic compounds, a mixture of organic compounds, those organic compounds cannot be separated by other methods. Fractional distillation is the suitable method to separate such mixture, especially organic mixture. There is one more type of distillation, that is steam distillation. So this is a special type of distillation. Here what happens, if a mixture contains two or more liquids of different boiling points, these mixtures in the combined state, their boiling point will be less. Individually, their boiling point will be more, but in the combination, in presence of other component, the boiling point will be reduced. Therefore, in such a case, steam is passed into the mixture. Because of less boiling point, the mixture comes out first. The mixture having less boiling point comes out first, leaving behind individual components. The mixture comes out first. So that mixture is cooled. On cooling, two layers are separated, and those two can be separated by simple filtration. So therefore, this steam distillation is made use of to separate the mixture of compounds whose boiling point is less in the combined state. So steam is passed and that is separated. So mixture is obtained, mixture is separated to get individual components. So these are the method of separation, isolation by distillation method, especially organic liquids. There is one more very important method, very recent technology of separation of components, that is chromatographic separation. Chromatography means color. So we convert that components into colored components, and those components are separated by this technique, chromatographic separation. In this chromatographic separation, actually there are two layers. One is mobile layer, another one is fixed layer. In this chromatography, there is a column. Column consists of a layer, fixed layer, usually adsorbent. For example, silica gel. Silica gel is filled in this column. Silica gel is the fixed layer. In this fixed layer, the components, the solution of the component is added into this column. Suppose let us say benzene and toluene are the mixture. These are to be separated. Other specific example is orthonitroanilene and para-nitroanilene. For example, these two are isomers, orthonitroanilene and para-nitroanilene. This technique, chromatographic technique, is very useful in the separation of especially isomers. It's very difficult to separate isomers by other methods, optical isomers, geometrical isomers, position isomers. These isomers, they have almost similar chemical properties, therefore difficult to separate by other methods. There we use this chromatographic technique. So chromatographic technique, for example, in the separation of orthonitroanilene and para-nitroanilene, this mixture is added into this and it is eluted with a suitable solvent. Ethyl acetate is a suitable solvent. It is added. That is called eluent. It is eluted. Now what happens? This orthonitrophenol and para-nitrophenol, they form different bands because their rate of movement, their rate of mobility is different. See, that is a technique, not other factors. Mobility, the rate of mobility is different because of their rate of adsorption on this adsorbent, silica gel. On this silica gel surface, adsorption rate of orthonitroanilene and para-nitroanilene are different. Therefore, their mobility is different, and on a gradual running, they form two separate bands and they can be easily separated. So very simple technique, very fast and low cost technique, accurate, and it can be repeated. By repeated separation with very low cost and quick technique, is this chromatographic technique. So, in this way the substance which is under study can be separated by using any one of these methods: precipitation method, extraction method, distillation method and chromatographic method. In this way we separate, we isolate our required substance from the bulk, from the raw material, from the source. So, from the source we have separated. So, next we have to do what to do next. So, this substance which is separated by any one of the methods is then identified by this second step, identification. So, in this analytical chemistry, the second step of this analysis is identification. Identification, nature of the substance, quality of the substance. What is that substance? That can be identified, that can be characterized, that can be qualified by this step, identification step. In this step, there are two methods. One is instrumental method, another one is non-instrumental method, depending upon the nature of the substance. Depending upon the substance, we can select any one of these methods, that is instrumental method and non-instrumental method. Characterization. In the instrumental method, we use spectrometers and electromagnetic radiation is made use of. When electromagnetic radiation is passed through the substance in a spectrometer, depending upon the emission of the radiation, depending upon the wavelength of the emission of the radiation, we can identify the substance. Very quick method, easy method, and a small amount of the substance is sufficient. So, therefore, the substance is identified using spectrometer. In the spectrometer, we use a suitable electromagnetic radiation like ultraviolet radiation, visible radiation, IR radiation. Electromagnetic radiations are made use of, and that radiation is passed through the spectrometer, and so which contains the suitable substance. That substance is identified by this instrumental method. And there are several non-instrumental methods also, depending upon the nature of the substance. If the substance is organic in nature, we identify that by organic analysis. If it is of inorganic nature, metal ions or complexes, we use inorganic analysis. In the organic analysis, we use different steps. So, depending upon their odor, depending upon their nature, depending upon their nature, depending upon the functional group, and depending upon their molecular weight. So, these physical properties, odor, nature, functional group analysis, these properties are studied with the substance, and thus it is characterized. So, what is the odor? What may be the compound? What is the nature? Is it a volatile liquid or non-volatile liquid or a solid, crystalline, amorphous? Nature and functional group, whether it is an alcohol, aldehyde, ketone, acid and so on, and depending upon the molecular weight, whether it is a polymer or a monomer. So, the substance can be identified by several steps in this organic analysis. Similarly, if the substance is inorganic in nature, metal complexes, metal salts, we use inorganic analysis. Inorganic analysis, we identify the substance by its solubility, and precipitation with a suitable reagent, precipitation and flame test. This is very important, flame test. So, the substance is heated in a colorless flame, it imparts a suitable characteristic color to the flame, thus that inorganic substance is identified. So, therefore, whether it is organic and inorganic, it can be identified by non-instrumental method, and more accurately we can identify it by instrumental method. Therefore, the substance is separated and it is characterized. Second step. Now, come to third step. In this third step, we identify the amount, the quantity, the amount of the substance is identified here, quantified here. That is quantification or quantitative estimation or quantitative analysis. So, in this quantitative analysis, we can find out how much that substance is present in the source, what amount of the substance is available in the bulk source, that can be quantified here. So, in this quantification, there are two steps: instrumental method and non-instrumental method. In the instrumental method, we use several instruments: colorimeter, spectrophotometer, conductometer, potentiometer, polarimeter, spectrophotometer. So many instruments are there. These are some of the examples. So, using these instruments, we can quantify it, or we can find out the amount of the substance present there by these estimations: colorimetric estimations, spectrophotometry, conductometry, and so on. So, in these estimations, actually we need a standard curve. For example, in the estimation of copper, we have to find out a suitable graphical curve. So, in this curve, actually a standard solution of this copper ion is prepared, and it is studied in the calorimeter, its absorption at different wavelengths, and a series of concentrated solutions are prepared, and its absorbance is studied using the colorimeter. Using the colorimeter, absorbance is studied under different concentration. Now, if you draw a graph, you will get a straight line passing through the origin. So, in this colorimetric estimation, it obeys Beer's law, Lambert-Beer's law. Therefore, a standard graph is to be constructed in the instrumental method of estimation of the substance, a standard graph. A standard graph is to be constructed, and also a suitable range of concentration is identified. For example, for copper, suitable range of the solution is from 0 to 1000 ppm. From 0 to 1000 ppm, a standard solution, now a series of solution from 0 to 1000 ppm is prepared. In case of iron, it is 0 to 20 ppm, very low. So, therefore, this concentration range is important. Using this concentration range, a standard graph is first identified, and then the unknown substance which we identify here, that solution is studied. So, by that solution, if the absorbance is studied from colorimeter, we can find out the concentration of the substance, quantified, quantity, concentration. So, concentration may be in the solution, volume measurement, or it may be in the weight measurement. So, in this volume measurement, copper, iron, many metal ions can be quantified. Quantity of that, concentration of that is identified by using these instrumental methods. Similarly, in the potentiometric method, we can find out the volume, the concentration of the solution by titration method. A unknown solution is titrated against a known solution. For example, potentiometric titration of Mohr salt versus potassium dichromate. Potential will be varied. By changing the potential, we can find out the concentration of the solution. Similarly, by conductometric method, some substances, if they are electrolytes in nature, they conduct current. So, their conductivity will be studied by knowing by constructing a known graph. We can find out the unknown substance by conductometric method. So, here conductivity of the substance, if it is an electrolyte. Similarly, so many instruments are used to quantify the substance. This is the instrumental method. Another instrumental method, this is also another instrumental method, that is spectroscopic method. In this spectroscopic method, electromagnetic radiation like infrared radiation, nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy, X-ray diffraction studies, Raman spectroscopy, mass Bayer spectroscopy. Using these spectroscopic methods, we can identify, we can quantify the substance. Here, depending upon the concentration, you will get signals and of suitable substance. So, these signals are the characteristic of the substance. Suitable signals are obtained, but signals are disturbed by noises. So, this noise should be less, that is disturbance, and signals should be more. This should be more effective and noises should be less effective. So, therefore, in many spectroscopic analysis, these noises can be reduced. It cannot be eliminated, it can be reduced by using suitable atmosphere, suitable facility, suitable instruments we can use. If you use, we can avoid noises and signals. So, this is another instrumental method of quantifying the substance. Simple instruments, and these are sophisticated instruments, costly instruments, we can find out the amount of the substance. And there are non-instrumental methods also to find out the amount of the substance. To quantify the substance, non-instrumental methods are also there. We can find out the concentration in terms of volume, in terms of mass. In terms of mass also we can find out the amount, in terms of volume also we can find out the amount. If you find out this amount of the substance by using its volume or concentration, that is called volumetric analysis, volumetric estimation. If you find out the mass of the substance in the dry condition, that is gravimetric estimation. In the volumetric estimation, there are different types of this titrimetric method. Volumetric method means this titration. In this titration, we use a titrant, a solution and unknown solution. These two are titrated. This titration depends on the nature of the substance, whether it is an acid or a base, or whether it is an oxidizing agent or a reducing agent, or whether it is an adsorption agent. Depending upon that, these volumetric titration are classified as acid-base titration, as you know, acid-base titration, redox titration, and adsorption and so on, adsorption. And a suitable indicators are used in all these titrations. For example, acid-base titration, HCl versus sodium hydroxide solution. Redox titration, oxidizing agent versus a reducing. If the substance is oxidizing, use a standard reducing agent. If its adsorption takes place, use a suitable adsorbent. So, like that, different types of titrations we carry out. So, last type of estimation, that is gravimetric estimation. We find out the mass of the substance in the dry condition, gravimetric estimation. In the gravimetric estimation, the substance is precipitated using a suitable precipitant. As I told you earlier, using a known amount of the precipitant, the substance is precipitated. So, by knowing the weight of the precipitate, we find out the amount of the substance in the dry condition. We measure the mass here, not the volume, we measure the mass. That we call it as gravimetric estimation. For example, in the gravimetric estimation of barium as barium sulfate, this gravimetric estimation, we use sulfuric acid as the precipitating agent to barium solution. Barium sulfate is precipitated, it is filtered. It is filtered in a suitable filter paper. Suitable filter paper to filter this one is Wattmann number 42 filter paper. Wattmann filter. Suitable filter papers are there, ashless filter papers. So, therefore, using ashless filter paper for this barium sulfate, the suitable filter paper is Wattmann number 42 filter paper is used. The precipitate barium sulfate is filtered, dried and ignited, and the weight of barium sulfate is calculated. So, filter paper you can use. You can also use silica crucibles. For example, in the precipitation of nickel as nickel dimethyl glyoxime, we use silica, silica crucible. We filter the precipitate in the silica crucible. By knowing the weight of the precipitate in the silica crucible, we can find out the amount of the substance in the gravimetric estimation. So, therefore, by these methods, we can find out the amount of the substance, that is quantification. So, this is the three steps: separation, identification and quantification. So, we shall move to the next topic. Let us come to the next topic in this basic organic chemistry. So, here let us see the interdisciplinary nature of analytical chemistry. Analytical chemistry is applicable to many fields, interdisciplinary. So, now let us see one by one how it is applicable to other fields. For example, in medicine, this analytical chemistry is very, very useful. Medicine is analyzed and different components present in the medicine is estimated. Very, very important in the pharmaceutical analysis, that pharmaceutical chemistry, in pharmacy, this analytical chemistry is made use of to find out the different components present in medicine. For example, salicylic acid is present in aspirin. How much of salicylic acid? That is estimated by this analytical method. And also very complicated structure. For example, DNA sequence. How this DNA molecule is made use of? How many monomers are there in a DNA? So, DNA sequence, the order of DNA sequence can be studied by this analytical method. And sequence of amino acids in proteins, protein sequence. How amino acids are arranged in a protein. Amino acids, cysteine, glycine, alanine, tyrosine. What is the order of these amino acids in the protein synthesis? Protein synthesis can be studied by this analytical chemistry. So, drugs can be analyzed, DNA sequence can be found, protein can be synthesized, protein sequence can be studied. So, that is the application of this analytical chemistry in medicinal field. Now, next field of this analytical chemistry is in the forensic science field. So, when a fraud or an unlawful activity takes place due to some chemical substances, those can be identified by this analytical chemistry. What are the substances that are responsible for the unlawful activity in society? Therefore, forensic science is very useful in identifying the substances which are used for unforeseen activities in the society. So, forensic science is made use of. In government and academic labs, so many laboratories, chemical laboratory, colleges, laboratories in the college, government laboratories. In all those laboratories, this analytical chemistry is made use of to find out the chemical substances. In agricultural field nowadays, there is a lot of improvement in the production of food material in the agricultural field. That is because of synthetic fertilizers. So, synthetic fertilizers can be manufactured by chemical reaction. For example, urea is manufactured by Haber's process, a synthetic fertilizer. So, synthetic fertilizers can be synthesized and analyzed using this analytical chemistry. Fertilizers can be analyzed, and many plant medicines like insecticides, pesticides, all those are studied by this analytical chemistry to improve the agricultural product. To improve the development of agriculture, we use this analytical chemistry in fertilizer field, synthesis, insecticides, pesticides and so on. In the engineering field, we use this analytical chemistry in nanotechnology, software manufacture. In these fields, analytical chemistry is made use of to prepare the materials which are used for this nanotechnology, software industry like that. So, in industry, chemical industries are innumerable in number. Dye industry, dyes, then cosmetics, so many instruments, so many substances, dyes, cosmetics, paints, many industries, this analytical chemistry is made use of in the manufacture of these substances. In the environmental, to study the environmental pollutant, to control the pollutants in the environment. Environment pollution can be controlled by using these chemicals. In that field, we are using analytical chemistry. Environmental pollution control board is there. There they are using different type of chemicals to study the environmental pollution rate. So this is the interdisciplinary nature of analytical chemistry. Medicinal field, forensic science, government and academic labs, agriculture, engineering, industry and environment. Now come to the concept of sampling, how this sample is obtained from the source. That is very, very important. So in the raw material, in the natural source, many components are there. From that, how the required component is studied. That is concept of sampling. How to obtain the sample? We cannot study the whole mass available in nature. Therefore, we have to consider a small amount of the sample from the source. That is called concept of sampling. How this sample is obtained? There are different methods in this sampling, concept of sampling, to get a sample of the substance. That is random sampling, systematic sampling, stratified sampling and cluster sampling. This random sampling is not systematic. Randomly, a small amount of the sample is taken from the available source. Not systematic, it is unsystematic, a random sampling. Lot of error will be there in this random sampling. A small amount of the sample is taken from the source. There is no calculation in the sampling. That is random sampling. Error will be more in case of random sampling. In the systematic sampling, error will be less. In the systematic sampling, what they are doing is, they take the sample at regular intervals, at regular time intervals they study. That sample may undergo many chemical changes depending upon the temperature, depending upon the pressure of the atmosphere, depending upon the dilution, water content in the sample, that will be changed. Therefore, from the whole of the sample, small amount is studied at regular intervals and average will be taken. That is systematic sampling. Whatever may be the change with the time, that can be studied in the systematic sampling. In systematic sampling, regular time interval of study is considered here. In case of stratified sampling, the available sample is divided into a number of stratas, number of amounts. It is divided into different, not fractions, different amounts. Mainly it will be divided. The sample will be divided into main components, 3 or 4 components, and one by one they study. That is stratified sampling. Sample is obtained from each of the strata and they study the sampling. That is stratified sampling here. In case of cluster sampling, what they do is similar to stratified sampling, they separate this into different clusters and they take the sample. For example, if it is converted into A, B, C, D cluster, they take the sample mixture from A and D. They study that. They take the sample mixture A and B. Study that between B and C and between B and D. So different samples, different area of the sample, it may contain different amount of the substance. Therefore, that cluster will be mixed and they study in all the areas of the sample so that the result will be more accurate. So this is the way of taking the sample from the source. You cannot simply take a small number of source from any area. You have to take the sample from all the area. You can study the sample in a time duration to get accurate yield. That is concept of sampling. See, concept of sampling, very, very important. Next is after the study of this sample by various methods, what is the error there? What is the accuracy? What is the precision of the sample? We have to find out. So, in this accuracy and precision, so this precision is the result of several trials of the sample study. Result, repetition of values, repetition of the result. The sample is studied several times and the result is almost same. Result is almost same. Several times it is studied. For example, the result is x1 in the first trial, x2 and several trials xn. So many trials we study here and we have to take the average, square root of the mean of the squares of the result. That is called standard deviation. And it is observed that in the repetition of the values, if all the values are almost same, that is called precision. Precision is the average of a number of values, number of results they have taken, and it is expressed in terms of standard deviation. Standard deviation is the accuracy or it is the precision of the result. It is equal to square root of the squares of the mean of the trials. That is called standard deviation. Now, precision is not accurate. Precision is the constant value, that's all. That is not equal to the correct value. That is not correct. So, precision is the constant value, constant result, but accuracy is the correct value. Accuracy means it is the exact value, it is the correct value of the result, correct value of the substance, correctness, accuracy. If it is more accurate, it is more equal to the real value, reality, real value, correct value. Accuracy is correctness. So, therefore, if the result is accurate, that is very near to the exact value, exactness. This accuracy is expressed in terms of error. If the error is less, accuracy is more. So, accuracy is not always equal to 100% correct value. Accuracy is nearer to the correct value. This accuracy is expressed in terms of error. Error is the difference between the real value, correct value and the observed value. Suppose if the observed value is x and correct value is x dash, you have to take the positive value. Even if you get the negative value, you have to take the mod, correct value. Therefore, absolute error, EA, absolute error is nothing but the correct value minus the experimental value. Observed value is x, observed value, and this is the correct value. Observed value minus correct value gives you the absolute error. This error tells you how much the value is equal to the reality. Another one is absolute error. This one is repetitive error, ER. In this error, we have to take the mean, average of the observed value. Observed value minus the correct value divided by the observed value gives you the ER. ER it gives like that. Percentage of error can be calculated by multiplying this ER into 100. You get the percentage of error. If the accuracy is more, percentage of error is less. If the percentage of error is more, accuracy is less, and so on. So, therefore, the error should be minimum. You have to minimize the error. The error in the estimation, in the calculation, in the estimation, the error is of different types. Error, methodic error, personal error, instrumental error and proportional error. We can classify these errors. Errors is because of these things. Methodic error, which method we use to find out the value, to find out the correctness, exact value, which method we use. That method is important. Is that method accurate? Is that method identical? So, titration method, gravimetric method, colorimetric method, is that method is more accurate? Will it give correct result? That is important. Therefore, which method we adopt to find out the amount of the substance, to qualify the substance, that is important. If the method is wrong, the error is more, and that error is due to methodic error. Another one is personal error. Personal error. So, we have to perform the experiment correctly. So, you have to take the values correctly, and you have to take the values up to more decimal places. So, personal. So, and how to measure, how, for example, in the titration, how to pipette it out, how to add, how to observe the color. So, our observation is important. If you don't observe the color or the values correctly, it is your personal error. Another error is instrumental error. Instrumental error, for example, calibration is not made correctly. In the burette, values are not correct, calibration is not correct. So, if the instrument is wrong, then definitely error will be more. So, those errors are called instrumental errors. Another is proportional errors. Proportional errors means how to react the substances, with which proportion you have to react. If the proportion is varied, that is proportional error. Whatever may be the reason, if the error is more, accuracy is less. That is why we have to avoid, we have to minimize these errors to get more accurate value. Lastly, use of significant figures. Use of significant figure means, for example, if you take 12 mg per ml, 12 mg per ml, concentration of a substance, 12 mg per ml. Another reading is 12.512 mg per ml. See, this is only 12 mg. This is 12.512 mg, 3 decimal places. Totally, there are only 2 digits here. Here, there are 5 digits. So, you have to take more digits. Depending, if you take more digits, accuracy will be more. That is the significant figures. So, significant figure means you have to take more integers, more values, more decimal places. So, therefore, if you take more decimal places, it is more accurate. There is a difference between 12 and 12.512. Therefore, if you take only 12, error will be more. If you take 12.512, error will be less. So, that is the use of significant errors. So, we have to use as much significant figures as possible to get more accurate value. So, this is about analytical chemistry. Thank you very much.